It is Studio 41, and do I have a treat? I've got a good friend of mine. He's been in my orbit. We've been around each other for, decades. And Roger Hurricane Wilson here with us today. And Roger, you've got so much going on. We're actually going to do a 2-part show with you. This is show 1, and then we're going to do another one. I want to talk about, there's so much. We could talk literally for hours about all the cool things you're doing. But you know what? You and I met when we both did a radio show on a local radio station here in Macon. This is years and years ago.
Yeah, it was about 20 years ago.
Yeah,
back in '94.
I was just a whippersnapper.
IQ Radio.
Yeah,
right.
And absolutely. And so you've always been a blues man and someone that's helped to preserve and promote blues music. And you're much more a rounded character than that. But you've always had a special place for the blues. Tell me about this amazing CD you've just put out with some high school students. I love this.
Well, basically, it's I've been teaching blues in the schools for a number of years.
Yeah.
Whenever the opportunity arises, and I was playing Spring in the Blues festival back in Jacksonville back in '06.
Yeah.
And in turn with that, George's Music out of Jacksonville does blues in the schools, and so I'd go in for about a week ahead of time and teach these kids about where the origins of American music comes from, which is the Delta Blues.
Yeah.
And so basically we just try to show them that, let them know that there's life before rap and to pull their pants up at the same time. But basically everything we hear from jazz to country to rock and roll, folk music, it's all influenced out of what came out of the Mississippi Delta. And so we just try to show that. And for myself, I always loved playing guitar. That's what I started doing first. I didn't know anything about the blues, but then as a kid, I listened to rock and roll.
Sure.
But unknowingly that a lot of it was British blues, because those guys got it first and brought it back to us, and so the story goes on and on.
It's amazing how we have that sort of circle of influence: Europe, then America, then America, then Europe, and it just kind of keeps feeding. But you've recorded a CD with a high school band backing you up, right?
Well, it was one of those schools that I did when I was working with the festival and the blues in the schools, and we just developed a relationship, and. So I went back a couple of times, did a few more sessions with the kids. The school brought me in for maybe a residence kind of a session for a couple of days. And it just evolved into a thing where I started working with the band director, and we put a show together and did a show for the school. And then I recorded it live, and the CD just came out within days.
And what's the name of this CD?
The CD is just called Live in Concert 2014, but it's the way I've labeled it is Roger Hurricane Wilson with the Fletcher High School Jazz Band, a.k.a. Uncle Johnny's Blues Machine. And Jonathan Merkel is the band director at that school, so he calls it Uncle Johnny's Blues Machine.
Love it.
And it's just a blast.
What song are you going to play for us today?
Well, the first one I did here was one that I wrote out of frustration about trying to call a major corporation on the phone to get an answer, to get information.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you call a major corporation on the phone, you get a recorded thing at the front, and they ask you to, tell you to punch a few numbers, some prompts to get some information. And that's not really what I'm talking about. That just eliminates people having to repeat themselves over and over, answering the same questions.
Right.
The problem is when you get to about 6 or 7 prompts and the human being comes on the phone, then the human being never knows anything.
Yeah.
Right? So then they put you on hold, and then they come back, and they still don't know anything, and they tell you, well, I'll have to get back with you. So that's the name of the song. I'll have to get back with you.
That's great. This is Roger Hurricane Wilson on Studio 41. You are going to love it.
Well, I called on the phone, get a little information. The voice on the other end expressed a little hesitation. She said, "What is it, sir, that you'd like to know?" I said, "I'd like to know one thing that I didn't know before I called." She put me on hold, was listening to headline news. Then she came back on the phone and said, "I have to get back with you." Well, I went to the auto store to get a part for my car. The man behind the counter said, "Let me look here in the catalog." Well, I sure was hoping he wouldn't have to look too far. He said, "This part is hard to find for this type of car." He went into the back room and returned not a moment too soon. He had that look on his face and said, I have to get back with you. I'll take it one time. Well, it's amazing in this day and age that nobody knows a thing. There's an information overload and it's all at our fingertips. The chances of finding an answer are at an all-time low. Surely there's an answer to a question that somebody knows. Then there are those questions that need a quick answer to, the ones that you ask. The answer is a peekaboo. The question that cuts to the chase and deserves a yes or no. The ones that tell you what you want to know and don't rake you over the coals. Well, I'm so glad my wife, when she thought it through, when she decided to marry me, she didn't say, I have to get back with you. Tell me something new that lets me think you have a clue. Tell me anything you want. Have to get back with you. Oh, tell me anything. Tell me they don't make them anymore. Just don't tell me you have to get back with me.